We use rectangular marquee tool to make selection in Adobe Photoshop basically square or rectangular in shape. Let's see how that works. First of all, to start, let's import an image here, the first layer. Now that we have our first layer, click on this to save it, and then we are going to duplicate this layer, Ctrl J to duplicate, Ctrl J to duplicate. Hide the two layers below here in order to work on the top layer first. To select a rectangular marquee tool, simply move to your toolbar and select it here, or you can alternatively use M to select marquee tool. So now that we have that selected, click on this and click reset to. Then we can start our selection by simply clicking and dragging on this to this extent, and then we have our selection like this. Now this is the first function of rectangular marquee tool. If I want to move this selection, I can simply select any portion of the selected area and move the selection to any portion I want to move it. For example, I can move it to the other window frame here. Now this is the first thing you can do with rectangular marquee tool, to make a selection and to move that selection. And you can also move the layer completely. To do that, simply click on Control and move the layer. Then by doing this, you are moving the layer completely, not just the selection. And this works much better if you have a placement that you want to check with the corresponding layers in your work. Control D to deselect this selection, hide this layer and unhide the second layer so that we are going to work on it now. Now that we have this selected, we are going to make a square selection. To make a square selection, simply click and hold Shift as you make your selection. As you are moving your cursor, it's going to maintain a square selection. By doing that, we now have a selection that is perfectly square. Control D to deselect. We can also make a symmetrical selection, and to do that, while making a selection from any angle, hold on alternate and move your cursor. Any direction you move your cursor, it's going to select the symmetrical balance of opposite direction to where you are moving your cursor. As you can see, I'm moving my cursor to many directions here. This is one of the ways to make selection as fast as possible. What if we want to make a symmetrical and square selection? Control D to deselect that. To make that, simply click and hold on Shift alternate as you are making your selection, and that will make a perfect square symmetrical selection for you. Control D to deselect. Now I want to make a selection completely from here to here. First, in order to show you something to you, now that I have a selection like this, I'm going to remove portion of this selection, and to do that I have the function of using something called subtract selection. As you can see here, click and drag to deselect this portion. I have only here and here selected because I deselected here. Now if I want to add the selection, I can simply click on this, then make the selection back from here to here. This will connect the two selections that I deselected not long. Now I have the selection completely from here to here. I can also multiply a selection. If I want to select only this window, instead of just removing, I can say, okay, let me come and pick multiply selection. Then by selecting and moving my cursor to this edge, it's going to multiply that selection and have everything deselected other than that one. You can also use a shortcut. While this is here, if you click on alternate, it means you are going to minus a selection. Click on Shift, it means you are going to add a selection. Play with this as much as you want, and by doing that you'll be able to see more functions of adding selection, subtracting selection, and as well multiplying a selection. Control D to deselect everything. I'm going to select that window while my feather is at 0. Click and drag to select this window first. After this window is selected, I'm going to click on Max. I have a max around that layer that was selected earlier on. Now I want to also select the other window. To do that, first hide this and then select that layer. Now I'm going to select this layer. All this is at 50 feather. Select the second window as you selected the first one. Now click on Max 2. If you observe this half an edge that is a little bit soft, it's not as hard as this one, and that's the function of this feather. The higher the feather, the more softer the edge of your selection. These are some of the things I think you need to know about selection to have a good day.